Welcome to VUC 2019, Visions Under Construction.
All right, that's absolutely fantastic. They now have a warning that Hangouts on Air is disappearing this year. So I've already said that in many places, but if we continue doing video, it will probably be on Jitsi. We have a couple of things to say before we get into the topic. The first one is, guess what? ComCon 2019. July 7th, that's 2 weeks from Sunday that we get started.
And even more exciting now, Randy, because somebody's going there.
Chris Matthew.
Oh, yes, Chris Matthew's going there, but not only Chris Matthew.
Yes, I'll be there too.
You're going there as well. You're going to be there as well, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So 2019.comcon with 2 M's.xyz. Well, we're at it. What the hell? ClueCon, August 5th to 8th. That's only a few months away. I will not be going to that, but there's Dan, there's Michael Jarris, there's the lovely Mira, Fred, David Duffett. I don't know who that is on the extreme left. Then there's a blonde, presumably female. There's another person I don't know. Looks like Simon on the right. And I don't know who's turning their back.
Yeah. And of course, I'll be there too.
Well, you're not in the photo, James.
Well, no, I took the photo, didn't I?
Two unknown dudes drinking at the bar. Okay, we need to get into business here because I have to go soon. So I'm going to start by just a very quick, I feel like John Oliver. Here's a quick look at today's stories. All right, so we put this on pause. So the huge noise for the last 3 days, which of course James hasn't heard a word about yet, is called Libra or Libra. I don't know how it's pronounced. These companies, so everybody's talking about Facebook, but if you look at these logos, these are the first 27 partners, among which Vodafone for our crowd is interesting, but also Visa, MasterCard, eBay, Spotify, Stripe, Lyft, Uber, Ribbit Capital, Mercy Corps, Kiva, close to my heart. Did I say PayPal? I think I did, eBay. Also, a bunch of stuff I've never heard of. Iliad, who revolutionized French mobiles and ISP with his free offer. Was that say Booking.com? No, Booking Holdings, and a bunch of other stuff I can't see.
Yeah, some really very big names in there, aren't there?
Yes. Anyone want to comment on the partners, first of all, before I'm going to have you comment on any of these slides you want to.
There are no banks.
Well, you've got MasterCard.
But they're not banks.
No, there is a bank. There's Women's Bank. Wait a minute.
Women's World Banking. I'm not sure that's a bank.
Okay. No, there are no banks. There's a comment that a few people have made. Let me move to the next. Other comments on what you see there?
I read somewhere that they were considered provisional partners, not firm partners.
Oh, that does throw a little funny thing into it. If they were, because these are all serious names, at least the ones I've heard of, Andreessen Horowitz, for example. However, they're looking to do 100 partners. Okay, we're going to move on real quick. I don't want to make this too much of a slideshow, but here is somebody's hot take. Bitcoin basher Nouriel Roubini, household name, labels Facebook's Libra a monopoly scam. Now we're going to move on. We're going to see some hot takes. This is a friend of ours. We all know who this person is, but I'm not going to name him, who said, quote, Libra is a play at grabbing the global namespace. They want to be the phone number, bank account, customer number for everyone. That way they can sell ads. Comment?
Well, Google did it. It's a good move for big business, isn't
it? You know, in all fairness, by the way, in all of these cases, nobody really knows anything. So it's all hot takes. Okay, next one. This is Jennifer Grigiel in the Conversation Business Insider. It's Facebook's new cryptocurrency. Boy, if I learn to talk, brings it one step closer to becoming an independent virtual nation. And according to this professor of communications at Syracuse University, it's Facebook's attempt at gaining even more political power on a global scale. Okay, comment, anybody? Agree, disagree? Yeah, probably agree.
I think that's where they're trying to get to. I'm not sure that governments will allow them to, and banks will allow them to.
Anybody on? Yes.
I think that the big issue that all cryptocurrencies have is this view that, that they're unregulated and they're not covered by normal financial law, and that's untrue. If you earn money in Bitcoin, you should have to pay tax on it.
That's correct. Yeah. John, did you want to say something on ZipDX?
No.
Oh, okay. You scared me by unmuting. All right. Let's move on because I've got about 8. Excuse me. Here's another take. Now, these are all a lot of negativity, by the way. Libre master plan, Eric Wall on Medium, I guess. Facebook regulatory loophole to fool the world. And I'm jumping around here because you can search for these and find them and read the whole story. Here, it's pretty succinct because he just goes right to the conclusion. They are very knowingly exploiting. Maybe Jane will have a comment on this. A very specific gap in regulations and technology made possible by the cryptocurrency industry that will allow their planned cryptocurrency to flow into, I have to read it over here, into the black market economy while still being compliant with traditional financial entities compliance policies. Boy, that's a mouthful. Anybody?
Yeah, what is the problem with that these people are trying to identify? I don't understand what the problem
read
is.
the white paper and you'll get that. Jay, were you going to say something?
Well,
Go ahead.
So, you know, I appreciate the points these people are making. The question is, how are you going to stop it?
That's a good.
And the second question is, who's waiting in the wings? You think that Google and Amazon are going to sit by while this consortium creates possibly the de facto global currency?
Exactly.
Probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you think the US Federal Reserve and other currencies are going to basically sit by in the wings and let them do that?
And also,
well, that goes back to question number one: is how do you stop it?
Well, Maxine Waters in the House of Representatives has initiated a bill that is actually calling for an immediate moratorium. Apparently, France and India have objected as well. Jay, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to move through all of these slides. Ciao, baby.
Sure.
Move through all these slides, and they're not that. There's about 4 or 5 more. The dark side of Libra. Dramatic, controlling, condescending, and repressed. But they're talking about the astrological sign. A little joke there. Okay. Lighten up the humor. Okay. And Edward, okay, I don't really know who this is, but this was obviously from Twitter. Librecoin, the difference is it uses blockchain to store your personal identification forever! Exclamation point. It uses AI to target your consumer habit. We already have XRP for this nonsense. And indirect competition with Ripple and other centralized coins. Again, Jay, you might want to comment on this. I just want to say lots of the buzz about this is from crypto people who are totally into this, and they're either scared that it's going to kill everything out, or why would I get one phone call a week, and it's now all right. That they're going to take
Randy,
over.
I think that was actually President Trump calling you about this conversation.
A very good point. No, actually, somebody calling me saying, "Where are you? We need you on the saxophone." Because that's where I'm going in a few minutes. Anyway, just to get back to the thought, there are 2 sides from the crypto people. One is that they're excited because they think that this is going, and by the way, Bitcoin is going through the roof again, over 10K, I heard. And the other side is, oh my God, they're going to screw everything up for us. Jay, a comment on the crypto side?
Well, I'm just seeing bits and pieces of the conversation in the Twitterverse, and it does look like the people that are in the Ethereum community, and it's my understanding there's about 250,000 developers in the Ethereum community. They do seem to be concerned that Libra might eclipse Ethereum. So, you know, I think there's a lot of question marks in a lot of people's minds in terms of what's going to be the impact of this consortium.
For sure. Here's a quick take, by the way. Let me make sure I'm okay. So their main mission statement, I can't find it anymore, but here it says, service the world's poor and unbanked. And the person who's posting this says, this seems unlikely to be the whole story. I think we all agree on that one, right? not the whole story.
Yeah, I don't think it's the whole story.
Okay, that's just one of their things. Again, I'm going to get to the link where you should go read the white paper, and I do think it's worth scrolling through it. I didn't read every word, but it's laid out. It's quite long, but you can take a look at it. And here it is, right here, the Libra white paper. I'm not going to read that, or maybe I better. Libra, libra.org/ and I'm not going to read it, too long. Look up Libra white paper, and you'll find it. So there's an introduction. There's a bunch of points we're going to take a look at that in just 1 second. I'll leave this up long enough, though, to make a note of it if you like, or at least be able to recognize it. The white paper is very long. It's a downloadable PDF, as you see. I've put an arrow there. Here's yet another hot take. Launching global conservative is a currency is a bold, bad move for Facebook. And the quote here is interesting. Years ago, Mark Zuckerberg made it clear that he doesn't think Facebook is a business. In a lot of ways, it's more like a government than a traditional company. Now, that was a few years ago, but this is kind of the trip there, right?
Well,
President Zuckerberg, yeah.
Yeah, it's worrying.
You know,
It
in many dimensions, both Google and Facebook and Twitter, and name your particular platform, do start to look like global sovereignties.
Not Twitter, Jay.
Well,
but the rest, yeah. Google, Amazon, Facebook, and who am I missing? Google,
so
Amazon,
they are
Facebook.
floating. They are floating above the legacy sovereignties, the geographic sovereignties, and there are two key pieces that a government provides that are now there's an alternative. And number one is some sort of currency, and Libra is touching upon the currency dimensions of legacy sovereignties. And I think that's why you're seeing this, huge amount of interest in this. Number two, which most people aren't talking about, is identity. And I think that's a subtle but very, very powerful piece of what's happening here, and what many entities have been trying to crack, which is decentralized global identity.
Is that
and certainly
with this quote that I put up a minute ago?
That's part of it, sure, absolutely, because that namespace is really, really critical, and the predominant namespace today is DNS,
right?
And what has fallen by the wayside is telephone numbering. And it's possible, and the people in this community, the VUC community, know that technically it is possible to start with a telephone number and create a fully qualified domain name that is both backward compatible to the telephone numbering system, plus opens up rich media, which is very powerful.
We're going to get back to that connection. I know you want to talk about that. The telecom connection is a good one. Two more things, and then we're done with the slides. So the first one is what I found. There we go. What I found interesting. So this is from CoinDesk, and remember, a lot of these quotes are from sites that deal with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Anyway, this is Brady Dale in CoinDesk, which is a big actor in that stuff, I guess. Will Facebook's Libra be an on-ramp or a dead end? By the way, that sums up the attitude of those people. It's either the on-ramp, in other words, it's going to acquaint a lot of people who don't know anything about it, or it's going to be the dead end. Two interesting quotes I found in this article from CoinDesk. One is Libra. I love this, by the way, if you're old enough to remember MSN. Libra is to Facebook what MSN was to Microsoft. They sense the opportunity, but are missing the point. That's actually right on. I see you're smiling, Keith. I think you may agree with that.
Yeah. It's yet to be seen. The trouble with these things is, Jay made the comment, how are you going to stop it? But the question is, how are you going to start it? Unless people think there's value to it and they trust the people involved in it and there's no nasty gotchas involved in it, then, the question is, why would people use this over existing mechanisms? I mean, certainly one of the discussions I've seen is saying, well, in the Western world, most people probably don't have a good reason to use it over whatever currency they're already using or whatever credit they're already using.
Right. Traditionally, the success has been in Asia, where they use it's not what it's whatever that chat app is, where you, or Alibaba has their own, and it's not WhatsApp, it's not WeCU, whatever the Asian, what is it? You know?
WeChat.
WeChat. Thank you. And the other quote here, one of the influential economists asked, have banks ever lost a political battle of this kind? Someone else, you know, we've all touched on that one too. All right, last slide, I think. Yeah, so this is a very quick, you need to go take a look at this if you care. You need to take a look at the white paper. Here's a few things that I kind of distilled from it. One is that this is from them now, okay? This is their statements. People with less money pay more for financial services. Well, that's true. I don't think anyone in this thing, that in our panel or anyone even maybe listening to this has that as a true statement, but it is true for a lot of the world, and a lot of Facebook touches a lot of that world, as you guys know. Next one, distributed governance ensures that no single entity controls the network. Well, were it that they would be true, I don't know. We'll see. Again,
if it becomes popular, and in 15 years' time, there's gradual creep of. I mean, there's been examples of boards who've been taken over by a single entity in the past. Yep.
Exactly. They say that it's backed by a reserve of assets designed to give it intrinsic value. And in passing, I'll say, yes, not only that, but they are all putting, so if they had the theoretical 100 partners, they're all putting in a sizable number of millions of dollars into this. They claim, wait a minute, Andy, they claim that they're not going to be tied to a single currency, which is interesting, but rather tied to several currencies. And they mention all this in the thing. Let me just give the last, well, Andy, go ahead first.
Well, I was, in fact, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. I'm just reading what Michael put in chat. But the whole thing about this, really, from my perspective, I mean, I can't see any of us using it, as you've already said. And the people who are least likely to understand it are the ones that will end up using it. It's almost imposing a new financial structure on people who don't know anything better.
And you just described Facebook.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, last one. Facebook. Now, this is interesting, too. Facebook is expected to maintain, again, this is them talking in their white paper. Facebook is expected to maintain a leadership role through 2019. Now, that's one of the most scary parts for most people. And all of the buzz, and I mean, I looked at a million tweets. I didn't read all the articles, but all of the links lead to mostly negative comments. And most of the negativity is about Facebook, because let's face it, scandal after scandal, they're in a new thing now on the scandals, okay? So, you know, there's nothing new there. But my contention would be to try to take, by the way, I listened to Twig yesterday or last couple of days ago, and they talked about this, and Jeff Jarvis, who's a very bright guy, as he said, if you take Facebook out of this equation completely, then what do you think of it? And all I have to say about this is that if you're going to really examine this in your mind, it's a good idea to take Facebook out, to not think about it. Although the last statement, they're going to maintain a leadership role 2019. And with what I think, Keith, I think you just said, sorry if I'm misattributing this quote, but about the possibility that someone else can take over. Was that Keith or was that Andy?
It was me. I mean, the only thing I'd say regarding the Facebook thing through 2019, we've already only got 6 months of 2019 left.
Right.
That side of it personally doesn't.
And by the way, there's a presidential election in November of 2020. So my God, we do live in interesting times. Anyway, recommend that if you're interested, we're gonna be doing the informal chat. I might even deign to put my camera back on. I don't know why you'd want to see me, but we're done with the slides. That's the good news. And you got my curtain. I've got a nice boating image ordered that should be my next week. I should have that.
Is that a tea-stained curtain?
No, it should be. It should be, shouldn't it? But unfortunately, it's manufactured someplace. So, and I can see that wrong side. This thing is showing. Anyway, we're going to be more informal now, just talk about throwing our thoughts around. I don't think, James your one of your progeny invested in and got some money back on Bitcoin, I believe. I put some money, you and I both put money in, and then we lost our wallets or whatever, but it wasn't much. But my point being that I don't think this gambit is not to invest money and make money. So I think that's already a source of confusion. This is not something you're going to invest in as an individual.
I think this is different from, I don't know, but in this, I think this is different from traditional cryptocurrencies. Traditional cryptocurrencies were a commodity. They weren't a currency. You could use them as a currency, but in the same way as you could trade a bag of flour or a goat or something. But they were commodities. From what I've read of this is set up specifically to act like a currency. So they're basically trying to be a bank. And they're trying to create a new currency around that bank. I'm talking about a central bank rather than a high street retail bank, of course. Mm-hmm. And they're pinning that the value of that, and so to reduce the amount of trading that's done through investment in it. And you're not, from what I can see, you can't do things like mine your own coin.
And the mining thing is a big problem, because anyone who knows anything about this stuff realizes that the whole mining thing is a huge, huge ecological disaster, wasting electricity. You can still buy those big fat stations to mine, by the way. I don't know that anybody's actually making any money anymore. The other scandal on mining was all the stuff that they did through your browser. I don't know, anybody have any comments on that? Some of you must know something about that. I know there was ironically, a flat Facebook, right? I wish Corrado was here because he remembers this. There was a Chrome add-on that flattened out all the crap in Facebook and made it actually readable. But apparently they were mining CryptoCoin, and I'm sure other extensions were too.
Well, it's browser extensions. There were apps. There were people just generally getting their computers hacked and having stuff put on it. AWS instances, they did a review a couple of years ago, and they said some ridiculous number of AWS instances were running crypto mining because people were good and
But then again, what isn't running on AWS? That's nefarious. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure there are many wonderful things running on AWS.
Stuff, yeah.
There's lots of horrible stuff running on AWS because it's there. It's like reading.
Yeah, the Bitcoin thing continues to amaze me, how something which is clearly so inefficient and in the medium to long term is unsupportable can continue to go on, and the value of Bitcoin continues to go up even though the ecosystem is not supportable. It's crazy.
Here's two words to think about: pyramid scheme. Next. Bitcoin, yeah, if you get in at the right moment, you get out at the right moment, it's great.
Exactly.
It's got to crash because it's not supportable. As people stop mining, the whole thing becomes more and more untenable, doesn't it?
Well, also it will reach a point where you can't mine anymore because it's actually saturated, because there is a limit on how many Bitcoin there can be.
And
so the whole thing will just grind to a halt then.
And the other problem with Bitcoin and all the currencies is the cost of transactions. And one of the things that they put forth in this Libre thing is that they want low-cost transactions. And they also someone posited, let's say, that there was going to be smaller, very small transactions. And that's true, that there needs to be a solution for that too.
Okay, well, it begs the question, if there's no mining, where are those excuse me, all those cryptographic operations required to support the ecosystem? Where do they take place, and who pays for them?
Well, they've reduced, I can answer this, they've centralized it so that instead of the whole blockchain requiring a copy of every transaction, there will be a central group of nodes which retain that transaction, which means it's something like 1,000 times faster than things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. But it means that the whole blockchain, unlike things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which have the whole blockchain have a copy of everything, it means there's only a limited number of nodes have a copy of it. So that's the one side. The other side is kind of in terms of value. Bitcoin derives its value through the mining of coins, whereas the idea of this, it will actually be more like a proper currency in that it's actually pegged to a particular currency, they're going to have a what's the term? They're basically going to have like a reserve, a one-to-one reserve. So basically when you go and buy, if you buy $10 worth of this cryptocurrency, then they effectively deposit that $10 in a real bank, or effectively a bank, a reserve, and then when you cash it in, you get that back out. So there's actually a reserve behind it, just as there are with other real currencies. So from that point of view, it looks like they're kind of, in my view, it looks like they're kind of doing it correctly, in that they're actually trying to be a currency rather than trying to be a Bitcoin commodity type thing.
Quoting you from our private discussion earlier, Keith, I think this is very good. I said, well, actually, in objective sense and the general sense, this actually looks like a good idea. And I think you said something like, there are a lot of things that are good ideas, but then when they get realized, like the devil is in the details, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that do concern me about it. I'm not that concerned with Facebook being necessarily the people behind it. I would like to be very clear on who it was behind it once it got going, because it's not going to be going properly for another year or so. And I would be very concerned about kind of how that, power grabs and struggles and things like that. I'm also concerned really about
James. What? James is broke.
Sorry, it's a bit of latency in here.
Yeah, a lot.
Am I suffering running out of processor power again? I'll go back to the other one.
Reboot that Mac. Go ahead, Keith.
But my other main concern is that the very fact that the people who are going to be using this are not necessarily going to be technically savvy, and there's a huge amount of opportunity for theft through exactly the same thing as we talked about, browser extensions and stuff like that. If you've basically got a wallet sitting in your computer, and that wallet is kind of what holds your account effectively. Now they've put in place a number of things to help mitigate issues like that. But fundamentally, you could have people having money taken out of or currency, whatever they call it, taken out of their wallet without them noticing for years before it's spotted. But the other thing that does kind of interest me is if this does turn into something big, then will it actually reduce the amount of fraud? Because if someone does steal a big chunk of money, would it be possible to use the blockchain to trace where that's gone and actually then wind that transaction back?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, a couple of things. Also, many of you are in the UK. In the United States, we have FDIC, which is a federal insurance thing. So if you put 100K, if you're lucky enough to have $100,000, I think the limit is actually 200 now, in the bank, the federal government does have a reserve so that if the bank fails, you get whatever that limit is insured. I'm sure the UK has a similar insurance of some kind.
I can't remember what it's called, but yes, there is a similar scheme. Yeah,
there is for investors. There isn't for creditors, though.
No, indeed.
Something like 97% of the credit in the UK is not backed by any kind of reserve.
Well, I was referring mostly to like a bank account where you've got your bank and you got an amount in that bank, not investment so much. And by the way, most investments are not secured. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, if you use a banking institution to save in yes, right, to invest in, then yes, it is backed. There is a government scheme that guarantees that if that bank were to disappear tomorrow, you will get your money back.
And I'm sure all of the 3 people in the United Kingdom and the 10 in the United States who save are thrilled with that prospect, right?
Yeah, it doesn't affect me very much these days.
I mean, who can save? That's a whole other question.
The other thing that kind of intrigues me about this, rather than concerns me or delights me, is how they're going to keep the exchange rate pegged. Because I can't, if they're going to do it based on other currencies, well, other currencies do fluctuate quite a bit, even stable ones. I mean, look at how the pound's done in the last couple of years in the UK, and fundamentally, the value of the real value of the money in your pocket, as they say, is partially related to how much of it is swimming around the economy at any point in time, as well as how that economy is functioning. So, how does that affect things like inflation and deflation and the actual value of a currency?
You know, it made me smile when you mentioned that currencies fluctuate, because I was on a website today with regard to ordering musical parts, and the site says, "Take advantage of the weak pound." It's kind of, I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny. It's sort of disloyal at the same time as a clever commercial ploy. Jay, you had some ideas about the telecom area, and everybody else is pretty wise in that area. So, what was your take as far as with relation to this?
So the question to throw out there, I think, is what, if any, impact might Libra have on the telecoms?
And by telecoms, you mean?
Well, AT&T, Verizon, China Mobile, whatever.
Do you mean in terms of infrastructure, or in terms of their trading?
Well, in terms of their fundamental use case and relevance. I mean, what do you think Facebook's going to do with Libra in combination with WhatsApp, as well as Facebook Messenger and so forth?
Yeah, actually,
so in other words,
interesting question. Yeah. I mean, what is WhatsApp going to become what WeChat is? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, yeah. So the point, I mean, the other question, and I'm particularly sensitive to this because I've been in the blockchain space since basically 2014. The question is, what is the ability for Facebook and these other folks to innovate in the realm of the human interface? Because that's what's been missing. A big piece of what's been missing in the cryptocurrencies is the human interface. The UI UX has been so cumbersome and so clunky that it, even if it could trade like a currency, you could use your Bitcoin for buying a cup of coffee, which you can't really. But even if you could, it's so cumbersome to set up a wallet, to understand how it works and all that stuff. It really hasn't gone to scale for the average person. But Facebook, and nobody trusts Facebook, but they do get huge value out of using Facebook, enough to overcome all the deficiencies in terms of trust, in terms of everything else. Well, the question is, are they going to be able to apply that value proposition and human interface proposition to trading value? Let's get out of the word cryptocurrency, but will they be able to do that so that it's very convenient to use Libra within their ecosystem? Same with Uber, Lyft, all the other folks that are on that page. And if I were, Randall Stevenson of AT&T, I'd be going, where do we sit in this mix? Because not only does AT&T and Verizon and the rest of the telecoms, not only do they have competition now from WhatsApp and all these, easy to use communication platforms, I think they've got competition from the banks, because the banks have the SMS, the voice capabilities. They've got the physical, location on every corner. They've got the customer service. And that's one of the things that I think Facebook is lacking. And one of their vulnerabilities is nobody's ever used a toll-free number to call Facebook to get something ironed out. So,
I don't think Randall Stevenson's that clued in. I honestly think all the cryptocurrency stuff, I think, is it's still peripheral for a lot of American mega corporate stuff, enterprise, right? It's still kind of science fiction a little bit.
You don't have to look any further than Jamie Dimon to see that, because within a 12 months time, he's going from this is snake oil to, hey, we're launching our own coin. So I don't know where the telecom leaders are at, but if I were them, I'd be taking a real hard look at this, because this is yet another dimension where their value proposition, I think, is in question.
I'm not sure I agree with that necessarily, because I mean, certainly there are companies like the African companies using telecoms companies who are using
M-Pesa.
M-Pesa and things like that. But
Right.
outside of those markets, you know, financial trading isn't a core business of AT&T. You know, financial transactions are things that happen over their network. They don't generally take part in them or take a cut in them, other than transporting
That's
them.
my point. Video was not a core value proposition for AT&T either 10, 15 years ago. And look what happened with YouTube. And now they're trying to catch up with DirecTV. And, you know, so I think if you start to look at this, Libra and the consortium and the ability to transfer value basically as conveniently as possible from a telecom viewpoint, I would be concerned. That's my only point.
I think that with respect to the mobile carriers, they have so bungled the whole mobile transaction space, leaving it to Apple and Google for Google Pay, Android Pay, or Google Pay, or whatever they call it, and Apple Pay. They've so bungled that opportunity that this is not something where I think they're going to be sort of on the cutting edge. I think it's going to take them a while to clue in.
I agree. I think the whole thing though hinges around identity. It's basically who owns the identity that you trade with, and I think one of the things that has complicated user interfaces, and made transactions difficult in the past has been, and probably will continue to going forward, is this whole thing of who are you actually transacting with? Do you trust that transaction is going through them, and how do you establish that trust? And traditionally, you know, for banking transaction, that identity has been a bank account number against a known banking, retail bank.
And in order to set up your bank account, you have to go in with your passport and proofs of identity, and then they mail your cards or whatever to you at a geographic address. So that's how you get your identity. But you're right. The question is, how do they establish that identity when you're starting out? If the whole thing's this kind of cloud-based virtual thing.
Well, again, Facebook, I would say, is at the forefront of identity, as well as Google. And you know, the question, to bring it back to the telecoms, is where do the telecoms sit in the realm of identity? You know, you would think that in identity they could possibly be at the forefront, but all you have to do is answer your next robocall to determine that identity is way down the list in terms of the capabilities of the telecoms. So, but well, I think Keith's point that identity is at the heart of this is right on target.
Yeah, another question to do with identity is what happens when you lose your crypto keys, as Randy and I have both done with our cryptocurrency. How do you get back and recover your funds? It's an interesting
well, I think again that is a potential big advantage of Facebook, because the solution to losing your private keys, in my view, is a multi-signature construct where you can effectuate transactions with 2 out of 3 parties acting in order to do transactions. So there again, Facebook would have an advantage because they pretty much know, you know, who are you married to, who's your brother, who's your trusted inner circle of friends. And that's the way I see the private key management going, is above a certain threshold on a transaction, it's going to take 2 out of 3 signatures in order to complete that transaction.
My thoughts on that is twofold. First of all, I don't think Facebook's knowledge graph, although it's very extensive and very complete and very accurate when it comes to targeting people for political campaigns or advertising and stuff like that, I don't necessarily think it's accurate enough or free from meddling enough that it could actually be used as a verifiable part of your identity and security. If you actually look at the number of false accounts and bots that are around on Facebook, then that kind of is a kind of evidence for that. And the second part is, frankly, I think they've still got a trust issue, and they've actually said you don't even have to have a Facebook account for them. The identity will be entirely separate, and we won't leak between the two. So you're going to have this centralized identity management that the consortia are basically going to have, which is independent of Facebook. So they won't be able to take advantage of that for nefarious purposes, but either they also won't be able to take advantage of it from a security management point of view either.
Well, and you're right. There's
new circumstance.
Go ahead, Michael.
That is Facebook. That is Facebook. That is having our cake and eating it too. We are all the heft and advantages of Facebook, but we are trying to shed all of the disadvantages of Facebook's history of leaking private information, and that seems to me disingenuous. It seems like that's not particularly a strong argument. You can trust us because it's not part of Facebook, and yet it's coming from Facebook. I don't know. That just does not inspire confidence.
Yeah, but again, if there is a very friendly human interface and you can send small amounts of money via Facebook or via WhatsApp or whatever, that distrust, I think, is going to be overridden. But to bring it up even a higher level, again, who's at the forefront of identity? And it's not only Facebook, but it's also Google, it's Amazon, and Microsoft has a huge appetite to be at the center of identity. They bought LinkedIn, they bought GitHub, in my view, primarily as identity plays, because they were behind the curve when you stack up Microsoft's position in identity versus Google or Facebook or Amazon for that matter. So again, I think that Libra is just kind of the first potential mega currency and global currency, but Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all those folks, I don't think they're going to be sitting on their hands and let this consortium have a free reign at creating a de facto global currency.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. One of the most important things will be in the next months what they actually have to say. I agree.
So here's another dimension that I'd like to bring up. The big techs, if I was, Sergey Brin or Larry Page or Jeff Bezos or whatever, or Mark Zuckerberg, there's a lot of concern from their viewpoint about all this talk about being broken up and the monopoly positions. And if you look at Libra as yet another dimension to their global anchor, I think it will be very difficult it will be more difficult to break up Facebook with Libra in place and Libra working to some degree.
Depends how embedded it is into Facebook's infrastructure. I mean, at the moment, they've basically said that they're going to keep it completely separate.
Yet at the same time, they will be producing the wallets that everybody uses.
Well,
Yeah,
will they?
That's not Facebook producing it, it's Libre producing them.
There's no.
Okay, Facebook-owned company. So,
well, I think it'll be like, I think you could make an analogy that Libra is headed in a direction so that it will be the browser of value.
Isn't it like Calibre or Calibra or something? There's there's a different entity for that. With regard to, that's a good point that Microsoft, LinkedIn, and identity, ID, all of that. But the fact is that no one's really got a handle on this right now. And one of the interesting things, if you think about it, is SIM hijacking, just to throw that into this mix. So, you call T-Mobile and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and, this is what happened. I lost my phone, or I don't know how these people do it, but they do it. And it's more common than they would like to let us think. And then, so if you had a wallet with money in it, but again, those of us, we're looking at this, we're talking about it, we may have resources to lose. The person that this is of interest to doesn't actually have capital to lose. It's not, not that they couldn't be stolen from, but there's not enough there to be targeted, I would say, first of all.
Oh, I would disagree with that. Even if there's lots of little microtransactions worth practically nothing, if you can intercept those, and that's my biggest concern is the whole trust thing that has caused all of the inefficient user interface and the kind of thing is there to basically to protect the bank primarily, but then used secondarily from that kind of fraud. And we're getting increasing numbers of it with technology, with traditional banks, with phishing fraud, with people getting their banks cleared out and people having their computers hacked and all of these phone up and say that you've got a virus and let you control the computer and log into your account and then they clear you out. And that's social engineering type fraud. But I think there's, with any kind of system where you're transacting with somebody that you don't necessarily know personally and haven't validated them, or there has been a trusted institution has validated them on your behalf, you could have people intercepting whatever ideas sent backwards and forwards to trade with, and so that people are transacting and sending money to the wrong people.
Well, wait a minute. What if anybody's watched Mr. Robot, what if someone who was clever enough, like Mr. Robot, saw this as Evil Corp and decided, I'm going to make a big sweep. They were able to hack in and just take all of the value, all of it, the rich and the poor, and it's gone. It's vaporized. Now, that may seem crazy, and yet it may be possible, right? You all know that was it Micronesia? I can't remember what country, Malaysia, I believe this happened, where somebody took all of the value of a bank, millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Am I misquoting that? There's something happened in the last year or two to that effect. No, everybody looks puzzled. I'll have to look.
No, I think it was via, I think you're talking about the incident via Swift. Somebody hacked into, I think it was Swift, and basically got away with 60 million or 600 million or something.
But kind of cleaned out the bank in one country, I think, something like that. So
what's the difference between that happening and a conventional bank crashing, where the bank goes bankrupt? And
well, how often does that happen? And also, there is insurance against that happening.
I don't think there is any difference fundamentally. At the end of the day, it boils down to the insurance and the reserve policies and stuff like that.
I think you have to have watched It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas for the past 25 years to understand what happens when a private bank crashes as opposed to a bank that has the insurance. But anyway, we have about 10 minutes left because I've got to go. I have an appointment with the Fête de la Musique. So we need to steer this towards wherever everybody wants it to go.
Yeah, something a little bit different. I got a spam or spit phone call.
Hold on.
Very quickly. What do you hold on?
Well, because Michael said something and then you started, and it was because of the latency. Michael.
One last thought, and that is, if this goes on some ways down the pipe, does Facebook become just another too big to fail organization?
Good question.
I think the financial entity behind it does, as in whoever's running the cryptocurrency potentially becomes like a bank.
Yeah.
Okay, James. Now it's you.
Okay, from that rather super and enormous question down to the micro, boring, everyday stuff, which is I got a wonderful spam call the other day from a private number which said, "This is BT's internet security thing. Your IP address has been compromised. If you want to put this right, dial 1. So I dialed 1 just to find out what would happen. And it went into an asterisk call handling system, you know, the beep, beep. And I think, oh, here we go, this is asterisk. And sure enough, there's a little Indian gentleman on the end who tried to tell me that my IP address had been compromised. Clearly, I said, well, just tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. I want to know more about this. And within 30 seconds, he had just hung up on me. The funny thing was, exactly the same thing happened to the lady, little old lady across the road, who I had supplied with an old laptop PC. And they wasted about 4.5 hours on her trying to get malicious software to load on her Windows laptop. But they were unsuccessful. They couldn't work out why. And the reason they weren't successful was that I gave her Ubuntu, but then skinned it so it looked like Windows. So it wasn't Windows at all. So they wasted 4.5 hours of trying to get this little old lady to install their nasty stuff, and it just didn't work. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Made my day.
I get those calls probably once or twice a week, and most of the time I don't have the time to deal with them. But a couple of times I've kept them on the hook for my best one is about an hour and a half, and that got to the point where I'm like, I'm bored now. I've got other things to do.
Yeah, that's the problem. What you need is some form of bot that you can just transfer the call to, and let the bot just waste their time. Snag bot.
We have a lot of incidences of that, including what's his name? I already forgot. The guy who does that.
It's
stuff.
Lenny.
It's Lenny. Yeah, that's great. All right, I've got to go soon, so let's go around and see if anybody has any final thoughts on this. Mine would simply be to, to me, it's wait and see. First of all, none of this matters too much to my life at the moment, but I find it fascinating. And the most fascinating thing about this to me is the amount of ink and virtual ink, let's say. Twitter is full of comments about this stuff. Every single, I've told all you guys that when I told you to go look it up, every single news site has a take on this, from Wired to New York Times to, I'm sure, Recode, even though I didn't look. Any site that's worth anything online is talking about this. Now, that's in relation to all of the different stories, you know, the basic stuff, that the noise, the cosmic noise that there is around all this kind of news. Let's see what's Keith's got there. Good one. All right.
Who's that?
I hope you saw that, James.
Yeah. Who is that?
Well, that's on the right. It would be
some random guy with earpods.
Oh, I see. It's what's his name?
Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller. Anyway, there's
something coming out of his ear.
You need to watch Something About Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say that's from Something About Mary.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a great movie. But you also all have to watch John Oliver. There's some very funny stuff this week, as there is every week. Anyway, last takes. I will call on people, starting with Mr. Andy Smith.
Oh, what do you want to call on me for?
Last take. You got
because you're so good
last
looking.
take. Last takes. Anything about banking and so on, when it's on cryptocurrency, when it's in a fledgling stage, is probably irrelevant to talk about. So I consider that most of the last hour's conversation is probably completely off topic and rubbish.
And yet, we will all be affected by it someday. James.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to try anything once. So many times new things have come out, and I just haven't seen it early on. So it's best to keep an open mind and see how they go, and just be willing to try things.
And you do look a little like Ben Stiller in that photo.
Thank you very much.
Mr. J.
Love you too.
Jay Carpenter in Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, I think that this Libra conversation is just starting to uncover the power of decentralization, what we're really talking about, have been talking about. And I think it's the first indication that this is now moving from this esoteric cypherpunk community into potentially mainstream, and that has political, social, economic, technological implications all the way around the board. That's it.
Keith Milner, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. It's one to watch. I'm thinking two things. One is, what is the traditional banking industry's response going to be to this? And that's not only the traditional banking industry, I mean the traditional sovereign currency institutions' response to this. And secondly, you know, I think it's going to be potentially rife for all kinds of exploitation, criminal work if it's not done well, and it's very, very difficult to do it in the way that's going to prevent that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do to grow it and make it safe.
Right. Well, every new opening creates an attack surface, I guess, is what we could say. So we will be living in interesting times. And again, I want to mention that due to the fact that there's an American election, I know America isn't the world, but yet Wall Street catches Wall Street sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, blah, 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 and so on. So that is going to be a big year next year. I'm looking at, can't see his AirPods anymore. Anyway, we're going to close out. Thanks, everybody. What can I tell you? I think that it was required of VUC to talk about this stuff. Next week, I have absolutely no idea what we're going to do, but there's some interesting structural changes going to be made. I'm going to try to find the outro video and go with that. How about that?